Everybody, welcome to the Stratosphere Lounge. It's a Thursday night in Bill Whittle, and it is the 9th of October. I was going to say October. 2025. And I hope everybody can hear me. Never fails. Having a problem on Twitch here. Hang on. There we go. Okay. Hi, everybody. Yes. No reason why it didn't happen or happened. It just did or didn't. There we go. Hope everybody's doing well. To try and keep this one a little bit short tonight. As I often am wont to say. Yeah, I kind of think we'll be tucking into the questions pretty quick here. Anyway, hope everybody's doing well. Good to see everyone. Marisha says she just got in. He just got in from Razor Fist stream. I'm sure that was elucidating. I probably just made up a new word there. Thanks for asking, Gummins. Natasha's doing very well. Her arms are still sore, just all the soft tissue damage, but it's getting there. Story Monster, love you, Bill. Love my dose of Stratosphere. Thank you so much. It's very kind for a super chat over there. It's a nice start. And here we are. Yeah, Deporter in Chief was saying, just trying to dodge all the Candace stories. She's wearing on my last nerve. No, she can't. Natasha can't smash rocks yet. Yeah, it's getting a little weird out there. It does seem to have died down a little bit. I guess everything does, you know. But I don't know. It's going to be an interesting world. I'm sure a lot of you have seen these Sora 2.0 videos. Which are, you know, even more. No, we're in an age now where nobody knows what's real anymore. So we will we're going to have to think hard about what we want to do about that. But anyway, thanks for the super chat there. We'll let the room fill up a little bit. Last I heard Lady Hawk yesterday, she was saying that I did see the video with Kirk being replaced by Elvis. I saw it in the warm up, so I just went and took a look at it. I think yesterday she said, or the day before, she said that Charlie appeared to her in a dream, saying that he was betrayed, and she said she sent out a so-called dead man switch, where if anything happens to her, all of these incriminating files will be released. And a lot of people's reaction to that was, well, if you've got all this dirt on people, why don't you just release it now? Yeah, it's getting a little weird out there. So, yeah, Smurge Dark. This is nice because this is not blue on blue. Hassan, the one of the two intellectual giants of the left, the other being Density. Hassan was on camera. He had his dog in the background to show that he's just a regular guy, not a Muslim Islamist terrorist or anything. Had one of his dogs. He had his dog in the background to add scenery, much the same way I have with the Gorn here. And the dog got up and started walking out of frame, and Hassan could see it on his monitor. So I forget what the dog's name was. He turned around and said to somebody, you know, God damn it, Lara, get back, and reaches over and clicks this button, and all of a sudden the dog goes, yip, just yelps, immediately shoots back into position. He's got a shot collar on his dog. It's funny how things work, right? People will can talk about, murdering people or gutting Israeli children or bashing conservatives' heads against the wall, and and then that's fine, but you shock a dog and so on. Alex Hooper said he did a follow-up showing the shock collar just vibrating and have some other functions like GPS. But someone else said he covered up the shock nodes. I don't know what to believe here. I'll tell you what I can believe here. That dog yelped. He didn't like shake his head. He yelped. He got an electric shock, and I'm sticking to it. Marisha says, I know Asmongold did a React video which included Hassan's response. I'm looking for an excuse to get rid of Hassan, but short of more evidence, I accept his explanation. I don't. He shocked the hell out of his dog, and Doggate is fair game for people who just invent stuff. So, yeah, like the dog choosing steak over salad or dog food over salad. Those are hilarious. What's that line circulating now? I guess it was a Charlie Kirk line. If you're 18 years old and trans, you've got a mental problem. If you're 7 years old and trans, your mom's got a mental problem. Or your parents have a mental problem. Yeah. Yeah. Well, aren't they haram in Islam? Dogs are, aren't they unclean? Wow. What a, I don't know. I feel very sorry for the dog. The Porter-in-Chief says, if Trump does not get a Nobel Peace Prize this year, I will no longer consider them awarded on merit. Well, I haven't considered them awarded on merit since 2009, I guess it was, when Barack Obama got a Nobel Peace Prize before he took office. That was the last year I paid any attention to that. And it's the same thing for the Medal of Freedom, Charlie's going to get it posthumously, apparently. I think that's great. But anything that's been worn by Hillary Clinton or George Soros has lost all of its meaning. So, that's what happens when you put poop in the wine. So, yeah, it was, I don't know, not impressive. Wrapping up all kinds of fun things here. I got to work today at 6 o'clock. 6:30 actually, out the door at 6:15. Got into the studio at 6:30, and man alive, it is amazing what you can get done when you get up early. It's just astonishing. I just cranking through stuff, and oh my gosh, it's got to be 3 or 4 in the afternoon, and it's like, nope, it's noon. Hooray! So I'll be doing that a lot more often. Let's see, we got a super chat here also from Brian Woodridge. Thanks for what you do, Bill. You helped me with my political awakening before the left got to me. You helped me realize I always was one. Well, thank you very much for that, Brian. I appreciate it. I just, I really appreciate it. Gosh, all kinds of love come to me this way here. Brina D says, Bill, big fan here. Just a little concerned because I heard a rumor you have a mail order bride. Please clarify. No, she came shipped from Amazon. It was 3-day delivery because it had to clear customs. I mean, she did. I was talking about the crate. Yeah. So was my stepdaughter's birthday today in Russia. And I'm going to see about getting those two back together again. I'm hoping to get the daughter here, but that seems to have stalled, so I'm going to keep tickling that and working on that stuff. So in any event, it was nice to be able to send a little bread that way. And it's just really hard. It's almost 10 years now of no, it's just actually 9, but still, that's a long time for them to be apart. And is it the ads again? Good Lord! Hang on. Why do I have to do this every time? It don't make no sense to me. Hang on, we'll get this solved. Sorry about that. Off. That should do it. Thanks for the heads up on that. Get this up here. Get our stream going. Get the content, the comments right. Come on, where I can see them. Got a little something to show you, just a 5 seconds of glory, but I just think it looks good. And where do we go here? That's about it, right? So you can come over here like that. Yes. And you can go over here like this. And we're good to go. Okay. So as I say, I've got just to warm up, and then we'll go to the questions and get those out of the way, and whatever we get done, we'll get those questions done, and then after that, I got some stuff to do. But no, I'm not going to give up. I'm just you know. Yeah. All right. So it's only 5 seconds. Don't want to overplay it. I just think it looks, pretty theatrical. It'll just take it's 5 whole seconds. I'll play it twice, but that's about it. Where did I put it? Ready? All right, here it comes.
Where have you been? I've been looking all over for you.
One more time.
Where have you been? I've been looking all over for you.
I think that looks pretty good, man. I genuinely do. I think that looks real good. Yeah, the closer it gets, the better it gets. Then I could just, I'll probably build in some reversals. Yeah, the hair moving, the breeze. I can't tell you. I know I've talked about this so many times, but to do that in CGI, first of all, it would never look really real, but I would have had to animate the waves and particle motion for the waves and particle motions for the clouds and the physics for the, all the calculations. It just does it, man. It just does it. It's absolutely amazing. I really like it. So, all right, so there we go. Okay, let's get to questions, why don't we? Because I'm planning on being in at 6 o'clock in the morning from now on. Damian Cavendish says, Bill, I'm up at 5:30, start at 6 a.m., get a lot done by 7 a.m., finishing tonight at 12 midnight. It's much better to start early. Yes, I'm with you, brother. That's, that old saw. It's really true. Entrepreneur is somebody who so badly hates the idea of working a 40-hour week that he signed up to work an 80-hour week. That's exactly right. Good for you, man, though. I really appreciate and admire people who work hard. And that's something to be said for that. Congratulations, Damien. John Ogilvy says, aside from Runway and Midjourney, what AI tools have I been using? That was VO3. Cdance. I'm slowly beginning to figure out what each one of these animation things does best. So, and they keep getting better. I haven't played with Sora 2 yet. I've seen all of the, AI slop, and if you know, you know. But for some reason, all of these, 90% of the Sora 2 stuff, which has speaking and really great physics and all that stuff, it seems like 90% of the videos that are being generated are Stephen Hawking either racing down the freeway at 90 miles an hour, or jumping, doing the tube in a skateboarding thing, or he's being parachuted or forklifted into a wrestling ring and body slammed to the ground. I don't know why Stephen Hawkins is getting it on the chin. Then there was a whole spurt of things getting blown away from your. It's like a fisheye lens, like a ring camera, in your front door, and it's like a tornado goes by and your cat gets blown away or a horse gets blown away. But these tools in serious hands are pretty amazing. I'll do it just because you asked nicely. Hang on a second. Tevin Stewart says, I was out of the room. Can I see the clip again? Yes, I'll show it one more time since I have to. Gosh, hang on. I'll do it for you too, Twitch. Hang on.
Where have you been? I've been looking all over for you.
That's the first time she's looked good up close, in a really not so waxy, and I was just really real happy with that. Still a little soft. It's a little lacking in surface detail, but it's like they're wearing too much makeup. But it's getting better. Yeah, I'll take it. All right, you're welcome, Devin. Let's see what we can do over here. Questions for today. Brina D says, how do you think AI has helped your craft? Well, it's given me the means to do. If I had that one shot, okay, just that one shot that you just saw, that 5-second shot. If I had to get that shot, I would have had to hire an actress. I would have had to get a costume. That costume alone, that spacesuit, is probably 60 grand, 80 grand. Maybe you could rent it for 10 grand or something. Would have had to fly to Iceland or something like that. Would have had to take a crew of, probably 10 people out in the middle of nowhere on location. I mean, that's not less than, even guerrilla style, that's 60 grand, 50, 60 grand for one shot. So it's absolutely amazing. And I was talking with my friend Jonathan about this morning. It's like, AI is great, and it allows people to do all kinds of things and make movies on their own. But the real use of AI is going to come from people who are filmmakers, who know what good acting is, know what good writing is, know how to move the camera. What it is for people who already know how to make movies is it's just a magic workbox. If you don't already know how to make movies, you're just going to produce a bunch of slop. You're not going to know what looks good. You're not going to sweat the small stuff. People were mentioning the thing where Elvis replaces Captain Kirk, and it's, it's clever, but it's real easy. Her name is Lisa. And I could, really get it right. Hey, Bill, James Cameron thinks he might be able to make the next sequels of Avatar using AI and a script without any other means of production. Could that be possible? It could be, especially for him. He knows what to, he's got some money to throw at the issue. But it's just getting fast. It's getting good so fast that I think by this time next year it'll be indistinguishable. I really do. Right now the hard part is getting two characters to look the same. Assigning dialogue to two people in the same shot is tough. Consistency is the problem. Consistency is the fatal flaw of AI. Getting the characters look exactly the same, getting the same suits. I could render 50 stills of Lisa on the beach and say orange spacesuit. I give a face reference. That's why her face generally matches, but not always. But every time you render the suit, it's different. And that's a real problem. So, but they're working on it. There's no question that the people who are working on AI know what's needed to make actual movies. All right, let's see what we got here. We got an Ian Nolan, we got a Capital G Geek, we got an Eric Blake, we got a Marcia Dark, we got a Jacob Belchek, Braden Higby, and a Steve Young. Yeah, we can do those. Yep. Kevin Eric Snell says, yeah, getting AI to do the same character, looking the same for 2 years, or for 2 hours. Sorry. Ugh. Yeah, this is the when they crack that nut and they can start. And I've seen this. There's something called Cozy AI, and I'm just, if I ever got on this full time, I'd have to really get into that because it gives you lots and lots of control. But basically, what it comes down to is, it would be really great for you to be able to, load a photo reference and say, or this is, or just a 360 visual. I mean, this is just a year or two away. This character's name is Lisa. This character's name is Jake. Jake is facing Lisa on the beach. Blah blah blah. They talk. A wave rolls in. Jake says, "quote." Lisa says, "quote." But even then, the best way to do that is not let the computer perform it. Just send. The amazing thing is, I could hire an actress in her own home to record the lines into an iPhone. I don't need special depth mapping like I do for CGI. Just record it into the iPhone. Just record the performance vertically into the iPhone, and then that video drives the still pictures, and off you go. It's absolutely amazing. Okay, here we go. Ian Nolan, Bill, with respect to the conspiracy theory stuff, I think there's one factor you're missing. We see the situation as less about people not being able to critically think and far more about so many people realizing how many lies the government and media have told throughout the years and then ending up with the conclusion that it must all be a lie, even the weather report of rain when they can look out the window and see that it is indeed raining. I think the answer to such a situation is not so much teaching people to reason about specific theory mechanics, more about helping to figure out approaches to rate how likely it is that something is to be true. Well, that's certainly my goal, is likelihood. There are some things, I've mentioned this a few times before. There are some things you can just lock out. The footage from the moon is impossible to do on Earth. It's impossible. For any number of reasons, it's impossible. But things like UFOs, you can't lock those out. You could just say they're extremely unlikely. But in any event, there you go. I think the answer to how likely something is to be true in a sea of lies, what is true? People need to find the base layer of truth before they can start to build higher. Yes, and when everything, the starting premise for this is that there is objective truth, and there is one objective truth, and there are many interpretations of the objective truth, but the objective truth is the objective truth. For example, and this is what bothers me so much about things like the 9/11 conspiracy. For example, it is objectively true that on August 6, 1945, a B-29 named Enola Gay dropped a uranium bullet type nuclear bomb called Little Boy over Hiroshima. That is historically true. Now, you can have a long and a legitimate argument about whether or not that was the right thing to do, but no one's arguing about whether it happened or not. There's nobody in the conspiracy world saying it wasn't an American bomber, it was a Chinese bomber painted to look like an American bomber. You see what I'm saying? That's the difference between 9/11 and like the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The fundamental truth is there. You can spin or argue the moral implications of it, but it happened. It's real. The problem I have so much with the 9/11 thing is it's like saying that the atomic bombings of Hiroshima were carried out by Great Britain or by Enron or whoever. Yeah, and that inability to understand that fundamental truth of it is tough. I mean, when it comes to 9/11, I can conclusively show that what we saw with our own eyes is what happened. I looked at a lot of animations and a week ago, I guess, looked at extremely compelling evidence for Building 7 and the towers. Overwhelming evidence. And there's also a lot of overwhelming evidence that it wasn't a controlled demolition or whatever the rest of this stuff is. They'll say firefighters heard explosions before the towers came down. Okay, well, one of the things that they kept hearing was the loud bang, really loud bangs, and that was people jumping to their deaths from 100 floors, hitting the walkway between the two towers. So, see, this is the thing. People say there's no way that this could happen. There's no way that the twin towers could have collapsed that way. And it's like, how do you know? And then you see a guy who's got like a 35-minute video using finite something analysis, where they've got the steel is modeled, the concrete is modeled. They show you where the fire made its penetration, what collapsed in what order. They show you the simulation of how it falls, exactly matches how it would have fallen, how it actually did fall, all of that stuff. This is overwhelming evidence for people with their eyes open. So, you really do have to teach people how to think. And the fun thing about truth bombs is, like I said, some of these finite element. Thank you very much, John. I know I was close. The ability to look at this stuff is you're assigning weights, weights to the evidence. So if a firefighter says, "I heard explosions," that doesn't outweigh finite element analysis of the fall of the building, and the opinion. When every time they trot out this guy's a structural engineer and he said there's no way that building 7 could have come down. Well, there are probably several million structural engineers in the country who are not saying that. When you think about the number of people that are either honestly delusional, honestly mistaken, outright lying, or clinically insane, you've got hundreds of thousands of people that are candidates for that. I don't know if you knew this or not, but something like 700 people, I think, if the memory serves, something like 700 people survived the Titanic. And of the 700, about 400 of them said that Titanic went down in one piece, and about 300 of them said, no, it split in the middle and then went down in two pieces. And how do you explain that? Now, one thing that's actually fascinating, and you can find it if you look for it, is that when the lights went out on Titanic, it didn't. If you look at the movie's amazing. But if you look at the movie, when the lights go out on Titanic, the whole thing is lit by starlight. There was no moon out that night. Brilliant night, the brightest stars I've ever seen. But when you look at the feature film Titanic, the whole thing takes place with a kind of a pale blue ambient light, which is, presumably starlight. But somebody put together an animation of what the sinking of the Titanic looked like for real. And when the lights go out on the Titanic, it is just a black shape against the sky. You cannot tell anything. It's really horrifying to watch. Let me see if I can get that link. That's actually. I thought that was so good that it's probably worth sharing. Hang on, let me see if I can find that real quick. I'll just put in the chats there. And let me make sure you get the right one. Well, there's a lot of them. You can figure it out. Because it really is shocking to see this wall of nothing up there. Okay, what did I do? Where'd the comments go? There's those, and this should be here, right? Sorry. And there's some more to that question I have to get to real quick. Oh, come on, Bill. Here we go. Okay. So back to the question. There was something right after that from Ian Nolan. P.S. Please don't go after Tucker without context for his comments. There's an active smear campaign against him that many on the right are falling for, taking his clips out of context and try to lump him in with Candace, who legitimately has gone bonkers. Most of the things you're hearing against him aren't true, and it's disappointing that people who are used to Media Matters operating against him would fall for out-of-context clips when they come from the right instead of the left. As an example, the atomic bombs comment came in the middle of a conversation not about deploying of the bombs, but about their development. Okay, fair enough. I'll be a little more careful. Yeah, I think it's one called Realistic Lighting. But that's a fair comment. You know, it's easy to fall into this stampede of opinion shifting. You know, like the deck chairs on the Titanic. So, thanks for that, Ian. It's always good to get a little warning about things. Capital G Geek, greetings from the swamps of Northern Virginia. In Virginia, a Democratic candidate for AG, oh boy, Jim J. or J. Jones, whatever his name is, made some statements that recently have caused a bit of a firestorm, saying he'd go to the funeral to piss on their graves. That would be of one of his opponents. And that he would shoot a representative twice if he had 2 bullets and was in a room with him, Hitler, and Pol Pot. The Democratic Party of Virginia stands behind him. Yep. I think that we're headed to a kind of civil war, not with uniformed military and clear lines of territory, but more of a banana republic type with retaliatory assassinations and violence, maybe similar to the troubles in Ireland. Militarily, this is called low-intensity conflict. At the state and local level, left and right have very different standards for arrest, prosecution, conviction, and punishment. A father of a murdered 8-year-old recently threatened to kill the murderer, who was let out after just 10 years. Yeah, I know that story too. It's actually surprising that lenient judges and prosecutors haven't been targeted by victims' families yet. Dude, I know what you mean. He's got more coming, but I know what you mean. Some of these people have had 7 DUI convictions. 7, and they're given probation. And if somebody I love got killed by a drunk driver that had been let out 7 times, or a felon who's been 47 convictions or whatever, yeah, I'm going to have a word with the judge. That's just it just just beggars the imagination. I just don't know what to say about that. Can I close this? Yes, I think I can. Yes, I can. Yep. It's just awful. So let's see what we got next here. I do, yeah, okay. At the state and local level, sorry, one more time. On the federal level, the 2 people who were arrested for ramming DHS ICE in Chicago have been released on bail. Of course they have. Our side currently has the government, which provides legitimacy to countering the left's insurgency, but we really don't have more than the top 1% to 2%. I suspect substantial sections of the bureaucracy are resisting from within as much as they can without getting fired. How likely is it that Trump and company can clean house enough to make the justice system work without the full nuke and pave of a violent counterinsurgency? Well, regardless of what happens in 2026, we have the executive branch until 2028, at least until 2028. He's been at it for 9 months now, and I think he's really getting going. I think that the way to go after this is not to try to if you're talking about things like unrest in the streets and Antifa and ICE. I think the way to do it is the way he's doing it, not go after the individual flies, just cut off the money supply. Antifa has grown, has metastasized because it hasn't faced any pushback. Not only has it not faced pushback, under Biden, the natural immune system of the country, which would be citizens, if Antifa goes down the street smashing things, citizens would beat him up. But under Biden, if you beat up an Antifa guy who's just stomped your car, you go to jail. So once that ethos sinks in, that honest citizens can act in defense of civilization without having to go to jail for it. Once that inverted morality starts to right itself, then I think things will get better very quickly. If the mayor of Chicago or the governor of California rise up in open rebellion against federal authority, well, then it's time to call in the troops. Somebody said, many people have pointed out, we actually fought a civil war over that issue, and that pretty much settled it. So I really think that they need to arrest the mayor of Chicago on federal charges of, well, I suppose it can't really be treason, because I think for it to be treason you have to be at war at the time, but it's certainly a form of sedition and rebellion. And that's, that's what if that's what you got to do, that's what you got to do. And the main thing too is, you got to grow the bench, right? You got to have honest prosecutors coming in on the local level and flushing out all of these George Soros DAs. Soros is an evil genius. I can't think of anybody on the left that I would consider a genius, but Soros is. I mean, when you look at where he paid his money, and if you look at the vision that he has, who would have thought? I mean, billions of dollars in a presidential campaign get eaten up pretty fast. Thank you, Coco. Good to see you. Kobo, rather. Billions of dollars of influence get eaten up pretty fast in a presidential election, but billions of dollars on local DAs goes a long, long way. You can just really leverage lots and lots of wins that way. And Soros understands that if you buy enough left-wing DAs, then the law will not be enforced in cities across America, not just in the major cities. Just the law won't be enforced, and if the law's not enforced after a decade, then people lose confidence in the entire structure of government. They lose confidence in their civilization. They lose confidence in the American system, and they stop believing in it. And here we are. Here we are. 9/11 was an inside job, right? And Charlie Kirk was killed by the U.S. government, or depending on which theory you want to buy. This is how it works. Alex Hooper says, if you buy the universities, you control all the judges and lawyers and technocrats, and also all of the journalists. The media is supposed to be the immune system of the republic. They are supposed to find corruption on either side of the aisle, expose it to sunlight. Those people are then ridiculed and run out of office, and you get a somewhat better replacement. But once the media starts becoming an agent of one of the two sides, this is why I don't want a right-wing media either. If we had a right-wing media, we'd be as mistaken as these clowns are. And you have to admire his strategic vision and his commitment to it. I mean, he's put $60-70 billion down. There's a lot about that man, that you have to admire, and I'd like to admire him from ground level, fairly close to the scaffold, and I'd like to admire him while he's swinging by the rope until he is by the neck until he is dead. He's just. I think of all the people out there, I think the strongest case for capital punishment for crimes against this country is George Soros. I don't think there's any doubt about it. I put Hillary Clinton right at the top of that list, and Barack Obama. But Soros, in terms of the intentional, traceable writing of billions of dollars of checks in order to destroy this country is, I think it's a open and shut case, and it looks like they're going after him. I hope he lives long enough to go to jail. I got a super chat here from Doug Taylor. Love you, Bill. Conservative millennial here from the once great state of Washington. No question, just wanted to pop in and say hello and thank you for all the work you do with an American flag. Thank you, Doug. It's very kind of you. I appreciate it. I really do. That's really sweet. So, that's capital G Geek. Eric Blake. Tonight, the case of the new Long March. So, Bill, as you may know, Barry Weiss is the new editor of CBS News. Yes, we did a right angle on that. We expect to see that in a couple days. Quick recap for everyone. She's a former New York Times writer who left when she could no longer tolerate their unhinged bias and went to found Free Press, work with conservatives to set up the new University of Austin, and now sold Free Press to CBS for a truckload of money and position of chief of the news division. And this week, we're starting to reap the rewards of her new position. As a California voter, you've probably seen the CBS News interview with gubernatorial candidate Katie Porter. Oh my God, what a train wreck! Where said Democrat frontrunner, how only in California can that person be the frontrunner? Honestly, I had not seen her until that interview. I didn't know who she was. I just didn't know who she was, and then I found out she's the frontrunner. That is the most unattractive individual I have ever seen in politics, and I don't mean just personally. She's not easy on the eyes, but she is just horrific, toxic, horrible, nasty, mean-spirited person, and I think the reason she's a front runner is because nobody's seen anything of her. I think she's going to be exactly like Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris was, before she actually ran. In 2016, right? Or 2020, I don't remember. But once people saw her, her numbers just tanked. Before you saw her, she's a woman of color. She's the Attorney General of California, and she's super super smart. And then she opens her mouth and starts talking. You realize, my God, what a freaking train wreck. Okay, so anyway. You seen the interview with gubernatorial candidate Katie Porter, where said Democrat frontrunner had a meltdown when the interview dared her to hold her feet to the fire with follow-up questions about the iffy things. She said, I don't know about you, Bill, but I doubt the CBS News of a few months ago would be so bold against a Democrat frontrunner. I agree. So for all the conservative attitude nowadays of why go to those old institutions, just make new ones, I'd say Ms. Weiss is showing why no, the solution is to reconquer. Like it or not, number one, Democrats are much less likely to go to these new alternatives to be questioned and interviewed. Number two, average Joe American still gets their knowledge of the news in the mainstream outlets like CBS, especially Gen X and those ancient commie boomers. Our side really wants to reach beyond the choir. We must do our own long march and take back the institutions piece by piece, network stations with Sinclair, Twitter, Elon Musk, and CBS News, and more to come. And don't worry, lest we forget, Ms. Weiss did create a successful alternative and use that to reconquer CBS News for the good guys. What do I say? Well, first of all, I suspect that it will take longer to reconquer these institutions than it will for the people that watch them to die out. But let's just say that that's not the case. We did a right angle on this. I'll tell you what I said on the right angle. The New York Times has always been a left-wing paper, disguised as a, as the gray lady of impartiality and facts. But as I said on the show, I did, Kobo, yeah. As I said on the show, it would be lovely, especially in this era when all of a sudden there are 100 million ballistics experts all over X explaining why bullets can and can't do things. It would be really good to have a relatively fair, unbiased news organization that had the kind of budget to set real reporters on a case and develop a case over months, even years. And if they had the kind of rigorous editorial standards that journalism school at least teaches, whether they, I'm sure they just have their fingers crossed behind their backs when they lecture on this. But if you were to apply those standards of editorial rigor and so on, and having to double source or triple source every allegation, if there was a reliable, well-funded, extremely disciplined, fact-based news source that is enormously valuable to the Republic, and if she can turn the New York Times into that, then I'm all for it. She's got an uphill climb. Yeah, Roadrunner says layers and layers of fact checkers, unlike the bloggers. Back when we started with the blogs and stuff back in 2002, 2003, these were well-educated individuals with very widened backgrounds, present company excluded, of course. But guys like Glenn Reynolds, law professor, and Steve Green, Scott Ott, obviously, and all the rest of them, we were getting news that was not coming from anywhere else. Now, there are so many people making so many comments on YouTube with their own channels there. I'm not trying to take anybody's point away. Obviously, not only are you entitled to your own YouTube channel, virtually everybody's getting more of a reach than I do. But the quality of the content, I think, on average, is way lower than what it was in the early days of blogs, when what's the name of a bunch of really great blogs out there, Vola Conspiracy and Powerline blog and all of those guys. These were run by lawyers and and professors, educators, all of that stuff. So we'll see. As John Ogilvy points out, the New York Times hasn't returned Walter Duranty's Pulitzer Prize. Tells you everything you need to know. If Bari Weiss really wanted to impress me, that's the first thing she would do. She would return Walter Duranty's Pulitzer Prize. For those of you not familiar with Walter Duranty, he was a left-wing communist who was the New York Times reporter for the Soviet Union. He spent 10 years in the Soviet Union, completely aware of the starvation, genocide of the Ukrainians. CBS, not NYT. I'm sorry. The New York Times is who Walter Duranty worked for. Anyway, and Duranty knew all this murder was going on, and he just kept sending back all these reports about how great the Soviet Union is, and convinced an entire generation of Americans that this was a really swell idea. And he was an accessory to mass murder, and he won the Pulitzer Prize for journalism. And the New York Times found out later, she took over CBS. She took over CBS News. But I think you can rehabilitate the New York Times. I don't think you're going to rehabilitate CBS News because you can't do 7 stories in a half an hour. Not the way they need to be done. I think it's look. I'm glad she's doing it. I'm glad she's trying. You got an uphill climb, and I guess we'll see. Marusha Dark, topic: the elephant in Jerusalem. I'm sure this will probably make it into your opening monologue, but if not, did you see that Candace posted texts proving that Charlie Kirk was breaking off his support for Israel? This was confirmed by TPUSA, and even Matt Getz corroborated that Charlie had made similar statements to him privately. I know there's a lot more to come. I think what I read from those texts was not that Charlie was giving up on being pro-Israel. I think that Charlie was giving up on being told what to say about it and how to say it, and was maybe pushing back against being pressured. It doesn't mean he was changing his opinion. I can't imagine Charlie Kirk becoming anti-Israel. Now, I'm sure there were people that were. I think a lot of this was over Tucker being invited to something, and in any event, no, there's more. I still maintain that Israel did not kill him. No kidding. More likely Antifa. Well, I think we have a real good idea who killed him. But it's hard to argue with Scott Adams when he pointed out that at least proves now Israel had a motive. What, how, what's the motive? What's the motive? This guy, lost a donor, and it's the donor's entire privilege to say, I am 100% pro-Israel. I don't like the direction this is going, and I'm going to take my money out. He's got absolutely every right to do that. And so this idea, it's like, well, Charlie Kirk is starting to slowly drift away from being extremely pro-Israel and might in fact move all the way to being mostly pro-Israel. So we'd better pop him. It's just plain insanity. It's insanity. It's the end of reason. Israel had a motive. Scott Adams should know better than that. And I believe it was Asmongold who suggested Robinson probably acted for his own reasons, but there's a non-zero chance he was a sleeper agent, and how wild would it be if the shooter said he'd been paid by him? Sleeper agent, I mean, I've had a chance to work with the CIA. About 10 years ago, I did a recruitment video for them. I wrote it and directed it. And I went to Quantico, and I got to see the big CIA thing on the floor, which is not really that big, not nearly as impressive as it is in the movies. And I've known a couple people. I knew one of them for a short time, but quite well, who were actual CIA operatives in the field during the Cold War. And the amount of rigor and the amount of discipline required to be an intelligence operative is so phenomenally high that the idea that you're just going to pick on some kid someplace and tap him on the shoulder. He's getting dressed up as he's watching furry porn and getting into a suit with a tail on it. This is the last person in the world that any intelligence agency would touch. And this is an interesting correlation, because the exact same thing is true of Lee Harvey Oswald. Oswald was an operative. He was a CIA. Lee Harvey Oswald was a absolute loser. I can't even call him a psychopath. He was so unstable. He was so ridiculously unstable and unserious that the Soviets, I remember the story very well. Oswald defected to the Soviet Union because he was a egomaniac narcissist who wanted to be somebody. He had been in the Marine Corps. He defected to the Soviet Union. He went into the Soviet embassy. This is way before the Kennedy thing. Went to the Soviet embassy and said, "Hey, I'm a U.S. Marine, and I want to defect to the Soviet Union." And the people at the KGB at the embassy said, "Well, what do you do in the Marines?" Well, turns out he was a I forget what exactly he was, but the people, I remember the KGB saying, "Look, if you were a guard on a base at Okinawa where the U-2 flights take off from, or especially if you were a guard in the U.S. embassies anywhere, then we'd be real interested in you. But the fact that you're just a Marine is, no, what can we possibly trust you with? You're just a basket case." It's just nuts, man. It's nuts. Oh, it's at Langley? You're right, Steve. I think you're right. Richard says, motive is necessary but not sufficient to prove an action, and something can be a motive while not being a strong motive. Many people can have a motive to kill someone. That doesn't mean all of them killed said person. This is, you know what this is? This is this vision. My master explanation for all of this is that movies have made people insane. Movies have made them insane. Every movie has a twist. Every crime thriller has a twist. Every episode of CSI has a twist. We have been so completely conditioned to believe that the obvious explanation has to be false because it's so obvious. That's nuts. It's nuts. Absolutely nuts. Lee Harvey Oswald was a loser who wanted to make a mark in the world. Before he shot John Kennedy, he shot at General. It was a right-wing Walker, a right-wing politician. Lee Harvey Oswald took a shot at him from across the street. It deflected off of the wood thing on the window pane and missed him. So he went about, he would sit on the porch every night in his underwear on his porch in the evening, just dry cycling the rifle, just dry cycling the bolts, just working that, did it for months. Gets a job at the Texas School Book Depository from a relative who feels sorry for his wife. And he's working there for 3 months before Kennedy even announces he's going to Dallas. 3 months before Kennedy even knew he was going to Dallas, he's working at the Texas School Book Depository. And then one day, Lee Harvey Oswald wakes up and finds out that the President of the United States is going to be driving right below his window. So, sounds awful lot like Tyler Robinson. You know, I hate this guy. He's coming. He's going to be close to me, and I got something to prove. And so there you go. The guy who nearly killed Ronald Reagan. Why did he do it? Was he a CIA operative? Was he an agent of Castro? Was he a mastermind that was tapped by Mossad to take out Reagan? No, he was a freaking loser who wanted to impress Jodie Foster. That's what these people are. None of them are professionals or trustworthy in any way at all. And needless to say, if the Israeli government wanted to shoot Donald Trump, if they wanted to kill him, then they would. There's no question about it. If the United States government wanted to kill Benjamin Netanyahu, then we would. We wouldn't use some lunatic. Now, the only thing in this little rant of mine that is, I think, factually true is that at Butler, Pennsylvania, the U.S. government I don't think the U.S. government put that kid there, but I think the U.S. government absolutely knew that he was likely to be there, and there's no question whatsoever that they cut the security, they put their F team into action. People were screaming, there's a guy on the roof for 45 minutes. That is actual evidence. It's not if the U.S. government had wanted to kill Donald Trump, they would have used a professional. And they didn't, but they did allow, because of plausible deniability, they did allow this loser to get a shot off. And one last thing to say, as if this is not clear enough, man. When you say things like the government allowed that to happen, that was the Biden government that allowed that to happen. This is not the same government. I don't know if anybody's noticed this or not. But this is not the same government that we have with Donald Trump and Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. It's not the same FBI. It's not the same Secret Service. It's not the same military. It's not the same federal government. It's not the Defense Department anymore. It's the War Department now. It is just plain astonishing to me that people can say that Israel would risk their survival because if it turned out that there was a way to conclusively prove that Israel assassinated Charlie Kirk, the idea that the state of Israel would depend on a guy like Taylor Robinson, or Tyler, whatever it is just nuts. And I'll tell you where else I've seen this kind of thing in movies. In movies, fighter pilots are portrayed as these volleyball playing, beer drinking, macho strutting guys. Permission to buzz the tower. Negative, Maverick. There's traffic in the pattern. Well, we're going to do it anyway. And my friend Steve Stipp, who was an air traffic controller at the United States Air Force around the world, I asked him after the first Top Gun came out, and I said, Steve, what would happen if somebody did that? If somebody was asked to buzz the tower. He says nobody ever asked to buzz the tower. Okay, but what if they did? What would happen if they said no and they did that? And he was like instant. He didn't have to think about it. He said, well, that's easy. If the guy buzzed the tower, I would have made a phone call. We got a phone right there. And when that F-14 landed, there would have been 3 Jeeps with MPs surrounding that airplane, and they would have gotten out of those Jeeps. They would have leveled their M4s at the cockpit and said, get out of the effing plane. Get out of the effing plane. Get on the ground now. Get on the ground. That's how they would have been treated. And they know it. Fighter pilots are the most disciplined, the most thoughtful and stable people that there are in the world. They are so emotionally disciplined that they're not really human in the way that you and I understand the term. The best of the best. If you've seen the Blue Angels documentary, they spend a lot of time on the boss, on the outgoing Blue Angels #1, and this guy has spent his entire life was designed to be leader of the Blue Angels for 2 years. But you look at this guy and you realize that's all this guy. I'm not taking anything away from him. I love these guys. I think they're fantastic. But the rigor and the control is phenomenal. So, they say, it could be a CIA agent, could be a Mossad agent. You will never see a real Mossad agent. You will never, ever encounter. You may encounter them, but you will never, ever, ever recognize them, ever, because they're professionals. Okay, so I believe it was Asmongold who suggested Robinson probably acted for his own reasons, but there's a non-zero chance he was a sleeper agent, and how wild would it be if the shooter said he'd been paid by them? Okay. My goal in posting is not to get into the weeds of conspiracy theories that even I myself don't believe, so much as to point out how you have all of these smart, politically savvy people, from Matt Getz to MTG to Tom Bilyeu to Scott Adams, Dave Smith, Candace Tucker, now Charlie Kirk, all coming out against Israel. You can add most of millennials and Gen Zs to that list as well. At the risk of making an appeal to authority fallacy, do you think that maybe, just maybe, it's not because they're all crazy, but because Israel actually did something to warrant it, something the pro-Israeli people are unwilling or unable to see? In his cabinet meeting today, Trump actually acknowledged that Israel killed about 70,000 Palestinians since October 7th. That's probably a conservative estimate, not all of them terrorists, but we can't know the real number since journalists aren't being allowed into Gaza. Trump also dropped another F-bomb on Bibi over the 20-point deal, suggesting Israel is partly to blame for holding up peace. Just wanted you to think about all that and consider what it would mean if it turned out you'd been wrong about Israel-Palestine. Well, I'm not wrong about Israel-Palestine. The reason that October 7th happened was so that Israel would flatten Gaza. That's why they did it. They did it. They committed an atrocity so horrendous that they knew that Israel simply could not do anything other than go in there and level that. And that was their calculation. They think that 70,000 dead Palestinians is well worth what the public opinion shift has been in the United States, and they will do it again and would continue to do it again because that's how they function. That's their job. They are terrorists. Their power is pulling bodies out of rubble. That's their power, is to be able to influence people's emotions over their reason. And they made October 7th so horrific on purpose, because they knew that Israel could not respond in any way other than a full-on assault into Gaza, which was going to cause the same kind of things that is exactly what we saw. And if it turned out that the Palestinian people was not in support of Gaza, if it turned out that this was a sort of like a rogue government. In the case of Iran, for example, that'd be one thing. But Hamas is supported by 90% of the Palestinians. Do you remember on October 7th or 8th when they dragged that naked woman's body through the streets of Gaza, and they were just cheering and whooping it up, and and she'd been raped multiple times before she was murdered. All of these hostages, all of this stuff. See, this is the thing. There's cause and effect. Okay, cause and effect. If you are the cause of something, everything that happens downstream is effect. And 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 it's the same thing for Ukraine. It's like, who started it? Who started it? And what did they do that gets this kind of response? Israel could have wiped the Palestinians off the face of the earth anytime after the 72 war. And they didn't. If the Palestinians had a button to wipe out all the Israelis, that button would have been pushed a long time ago. So I don't want to hear it. I am sorry about what happened to the Palestinians. I'm genuinely sorry about it. I don't like seeing people being pulled out of rubble. But when you support a political system and you are a member of a religion that believes that this is the way to get to paradise, then I'm not saying you're responsible for it. I am saying that you are, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. Complicit. Thank you very much, Coconut. There it is. So, I am not going to play by Hamas's playbook. I'm not going to change my opinion about who is morally correct in that situation. And yes, I'm willing to admit that that when it comes to morality, I'm talking about Judeo-Christian morality. Judeo-Christian morality says that soldiers wear uniforms, and the reason that they wear uniforms is so that you don't kill civilians. That's Western way of warfare. When you have people who are terrorists, they build hospitals over their ammunition depots, but the ammunition depots underneath the hospital. This is all the calculation. You understand? It's not like they don't understand. They fully understand. And the thing that's most appalling about all of this is it's working for them. It's working. They knew they were going to lose 70,000 people or 100,000 people. They don't care. They don't care. They needed to really swing the needle, and the only way to swing the needle was to make Israel do something that was so brutal and so necessary that they could then use that to manipulate American opinion. I almost said world opinion, but that doesn't matter. American opinion does. And that's what they did. And so, welcome to Islam, dude. Welcome to Islam. And once again, John Eden with $99.99 super chat. The legend has appeared again, and has once again knocked my socks off. I'm very great to see that. You're asking how many in the comments here. We're getting to how many. Marisha wants to know how many innocent people would I allow to be killed to save my family. Listen, this business about innocent and guilt is at this level, it is a it's a form of childishness. In World War II, there were more civilians killed than soldiers killed in World War II. Right? That's not up for discussion. Did those people deserve to die? No, I don't think any of them really deserved to die. I think only two people who deserved to die, the three people who deserved to die in World War II would have been Adolf Hitler, four, Mussolini, Joseph Stalin, and Tojo, because they took their people into it. But their people went into it, and all of them were behind their leaders when things were going their way. So to say that this person was innocent and these people were not innocent when you're in a civilizational scale war like this is childish. It's not unreal. It's not illegitimate. It's just childish. Um, Wars kill people, and they kill innocent people. That's why they're so freaking horrible. Which is why you shouldn't start one, right? Why you shouldn't start one. You shouldn't have if you didn't want these innocent people to die, you probably shouldn't have smashed these babies against the wall. If you didn't want innocent people to die, probably shouldn't have flown those airplanes into the towers. This is what terrorism is. Terrorism is a tactic. It's not. It's not a group of people. It's not a strategy. It actually it is a strategy. It is an ideology, and it is the ideology of the weak. And it is. And in order for the ideology of the weak to work, you have to be willing to sacrifice your own children for your political goals. And I would never do that. And I don't think any Americans would either. Ever. Because if they would, that's not a country I want to be part of. I mean, just think about it. Let's say Earth gets invaded by aliens that have these enormously overwhelming military power, right? And we try to fight them militarily, and they swat our fighters out of the sky with energy weapons or whatever the case may be. And now they're here to dictate political terms. They're not here to exterminate us, by the way. They're here to dictate political terms. This is how you are all going to live now. And if you asked me that the only way to get rid of these aliens would be to take my daughter or my wife, my stepdaughter or whatever, put them on a street and let them get run over by a tank in order to make other people more motivated, I would say I would rather just surrender, frankly. I'd rather just surrender than sacrifice my children to that cause. I'm talking about little children, I'm not talking about people going off to war. That's an entirely different thing, right? If you have a society where your warriors can't do the job, and the only way you can get your political objectives is to have the massacre of your innocent children, then I surrender. I surrender. That's I don't know what else to say about that. Richard says the Palestinians are as much hostages to Hamas as the Russians and the Chinese. They're not. They continue to support Hamas. And so the beatings will continue until morale improves. Reporter-in-chief points out Israel calls every phone in the building to tell people it's about to be bombed. They drop flyers in advance to give people time to get out. Show me another nation doing that. Supplies of aid that come in from Israel or other countries are intercepted by Hamas, and they're either destroyed or stockpiled or sold or whatever. This is not a gray area. It's not. I am genuinely sorry that there are people in the world who would rather kill 100,000 of their own people than give up on this insane idea that they are that the keys to the houses that existed in 1947 are still going to open the doors and they're going to walk in. Russia says they can't leave. If they can't leave, you don't bomb them anyway if you care about stopping evil to save good people. The government of any group of people anywhere is a small fraction of the total number of people. Can we agree on that? Can we agree that there's more American citizens than there are American politicians? Can we also agree that there's more American citizens than there are American military? People get the government they deserve. That is a two-edged sword, you know. People get the government they deserve. And that makes perfect sense to me. And you know, we're talking about Hamas and the Palestinians. It's got nothing really. If you want to really look at the situation and stand back, it's nothing to do with Hamas and Palestinians and Israel. It's got to do with Islam. Let's just be clear, okay? You've seen the pictures of Beirut in 1970, or Tehran in 1970, or name one. Jordan, Egypt, Afghanistan, Iraq. The women are wearing miniskirts, and there are airlines with brochures. Come visit beautiful Kabul. It's lovely in the summer. And And all of this civilization was wiped out by the resurgence of this death cult, this merciless, inhuman, cold-blooded, anti-human death cult that promises young men that you will be killed if you hold hands, you'll be killed if you dance to music. However, if you walk into a crowd of innocent people and blow yourself up, then you're going to have 72 dark-eyed virgins, and this is your life. Here's what you got. It's just plain. Just look at the pictures of these countries before they became conquered by this cancerous ideology. It is antithetical to humanity in every way. And look at the prophet. I mean, just compare the life story of Muhammad with the life story of Jesus Christ. Just compare the two. Muhammad was a warlord who was delusional. He was 40. He was talking to demons. He was going to commit suicide. He gets a message. He tries to convert people, converts them by murdering people, by raiding people, by lying, by all of these things, beheads people, has 5 wives. One of them is 6 years old, but he waits till she's 9 to consummate the marriage. He's just one of the most awful people in the world, and that entire religion says he's the perfect human. And you compare that person with the life of Jesus Christ, who never raised a hand against anybody, who was willing to have people nail him to a cross before he would strike back at them. And you want to tell me that these two people are the same and that their religions are the same? We've grown up in Christianity. We've grown up, this entire structure that we live in, the entire ocean of morality that we swim in, is Judeo-Christian morality. Rusha Dark says, by that logic, should Americans die because Obama did criminal action? He took his people to war in Libya, for instance, or Bush in Iraq. They won the vote and people supported them, and he ran defense for their actions. If Hamas held a school in America, we wouldn't just bomb it with hostages still inside. No, you're missing the point. If we acted like Hamas, we would have blown up the building and blamed it on the Muslims. If an American school were taken hostage by well, it's not like this hasn't happened. We would do everything we could to negotiate with them, and if it looked like they were shooting people, then we'd storm the building. This is what happened with the Russians in what was that god awful massacre of the school? There was another massacre in a theater, and they botched the attack. They used gas, and then they didn't clear the gas out, and a lot of Russians died because the special forces guys let the gas they used to incapacitate the terrorists in there too long. Beslan. How people can equate these two things is just absolutely, it's just beyond me. Well, you can say, did the 100,000 people who died in a firebombing of Tokyo on March, whatever it was, of 1945, did those people deserve to die horribly in a fire? On one hand, no. On the other hand, they followed. This is the point. It's true for the Germans, it's true for the Japanese, it's true for the Italians as well, and true for the Soviets. When Japan was winning and massacring 30 million Chinese, those people in Hiroshima and Tokyo were cheering their government to the rafters when they were winning, cheering them to the rafters. And when they bombed Pearl Harbor, they were cheering them to the rafters. And so there is a form of complicity there. when you look at these German civilians who said, "Well, we knew nothing about these death camps," it's probably true that most of them, in fact, it's certainly true that they didn't know about the death camps, but it's not true that they didn't know that their Jewish neighbors were disappearing, and they would often move into nicer apartments and they'd get stuff at amazing deals, at the pawn shop and so on. It's not the same. It's just not. It's not the same. So, I don't know. To me, this moral clarity and the who started the chain of events, who started it? Well, Germany and Japan started it. Who started this Palestinian thing? Israel has been there for 4,000 years or whatever it is, 5,000. Islam has been there for 1,300. And by the way, just so you know, I'm consistent in my reasoning. Islam took over Jerusalem and ruled it for centuries. The Crusaders took over Jerusalem and ruled it for decades. Christianity went to Jerusalem during the Crusades to liberate the Holy Land, not from the Jews, but from the Muslims. But that's not Crusader land. It's Jewish land. Jerusalem is the home of the Jews. Islam lists Jerusalem as the third most important city in Islam. First it's Mecca, then it's Medina, then it's Jerusalem. The Jews don't have a Mecca and Medina, and they don't have a London or a Paris either. That's it. That's their home. That's where they are, and so none of this is our land stuff makes any sense whatsoever. And since I'm on a roll, I will just say this: the Europeans, the way the Europeans dealt with the Indians in North America is entirely different than the way that the conquistadors did with the Indians in south of the current U.S. border. But I'll tell you one thing, and I'll say this without any hesitation whatsoever. The Aztecs were the worst people that ever walked this earth. They are infinitely more horrific than either the Soviets or the Nazis. The Aztecs were the worst civilization that's ever existed on this planet. Nothing comes close to them in terms of organized cruelty and murder. And I don't feel any sympathy towards those Aztecs. And one last thing, by the way. When you hear these liberals saying, white man came and stole the land from the Native Americans, they stole it from indigenous peoples. You notice how they always say that? They stole it from the indigenous peoples. They never tell you what tribe it was taken from. They never tell you that the Europeans came and conquered this particular land from the Comanches. You know why they don't tell you that? Because if they told you that the white man had come and taken over the land from the Comanches, then you would have to go back into the history and find out who the Comanches took it from. And the amount of murder, Apocalypto is an amazing movie. If you haven't seen Apocalypto, I cannot recommend it highly enough. The Comanches and the Apaches and the Arapaho and the Iroquois, all of them constantly murdering each other, raiding each other, stealing each other. This is not to say that it's a swell thing, but it does mean that this idea that this white man has got this, this unique evil in him, like we're the only people that have ever conquered territory, or we're the only people that ever held slavery. This is the essence of cultural Marxism, and after 40 years of it, it's really taken root. Every society on the earth has had slavery before the United States did, and many of them still have it today. The difference between America, you can include Britain in this, but not nearly to the same degree. I asked this number before on a show, and I don't remember the number. I asked, does anybody know how many British mostly sailors. How many British sailors were killed in the destruction of the Atlantic slave trade by the Royal Navy? Because the Royal Navy did that and they deserve credit for it. That's what the Resolute desk is for in Washington, D.C. HMS Resolute was a warship that went after the African slavers. But I think it was something like 1,200. It might be as high as 6,000 or 7,000 British soldiers lost their lives ending the international slave trade. But over 500,000 Americans died to end slavery, and no one in history has ever fought a war and lost those kind of numbers to end slavery. Never. Not even close. 1,600 sailors. So, yeah. Well, that's a noble sacrifice, but it's not 700,000. And the number of people, what was the percentage of Americans? By the way, not just Confederates. What was the percentage of Americans that owned slaves? No, I think I got that backwards. Actually, it is Confederates. In the height of slavery, 1.6% of the Southern population were slave owners. 1.6%. So, doesn't mean slavery's swell. It just means that the world is evolving and becoming a better place because we don't tolerate that anymore. But we ended it. We didn't start it. That's about as concise as you can put it. America ended it. We didn't start it. And we paid a big price for it. And Abraham Lincoln knew it too. He said, and if this war continues until every drop of blood drawn by the lash is matched by a drop of blood drawn by the sword, then that's if that's what it takes to atone for this, then that's what it takes. It's up to God. So there you go. Jacob Belchek. Hail Bill. Hail Jacob. Been thinking a lot about this little book called Rules for Radicals, which I'm sure you know well. Do you think it's possible to imitate Alinsky's tactics while rejecting his principles? Can we become radicals for righteousness? Yes, my good friend Michael Walsh wrote a book called Conservative Rules for Radicals, and he wrote it under the pseudonym of David Kahane. And he basically used that as a template for what conservatives can do. But the bottom line is, Jacob, we can't use those rules because those rules are predicated on lying, deceit, cheating, and manipulation, and those are repugnant to conservatives. Those tactics are the tactics of the weak. They're the tactics of terrorists. They're the tactics of people who have no power and will do anything to get it. Marusha says it's worth studying. It absolutely is worth studying. You need to understand what they're doing. But no, I don't want to use those tactics against them. However, one thing I will say is that after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, I am no longer playing by the left's rules. I'm going to use legitimate, legal, political power to the maximum ability that we can. I mean, when I say all out, hold nothing back, political counteroffensive against the left, I no longer care if a judge in Portland makes a ruling that says that the president can't do this. I don't care. Just disregard it. Just go. I don't care about being called racist. Don't care about any of that stuff anymore. I don't care. We are dealing with people who are not sane, and that is not hyperbole. That is an absolute proven fact, and any number of impartial psychologists could tell you. So you want to play civilized? I much prefer to deal with opponents through debate and the marketplace of ideas. But when you celebrate the killing of individuals because of their political opinions, then okay. Now we know who we're dealing with. You know, you want to wave a white flag on the battlefield? We'll take your surrender and we'll take you to the back and we'll feed you and we'll put you in a prisoner of war camp until the war is over. You surrender on the battlefield, wave your white flag, and we go over there to take your surrender, and you open up on our guys with machine guns, then that's what we will consider a white flag to mean for the duration of this conflict. We didn't break the rules. You did. We didn't smash the standards. You did, but they're smashed, and so now we're going to fight by your rules until you're defeated. At which point we'll go back to real rules again. Braden Higby. Hey, Braden. Howdy from Idaho. What a great place. What are your thoughts on the push to get Trump to invoke the Insurrection Act against Portland and Chicago? I'm for it. Some people are against it, but as for me, I'm for it. How much consideration should be given to how moderates would view such an action? What's happening in those cities is not just, but you can only help those who wish to help themselves. I'm concerned about the damage that such an action could do to the movement without any significant long-term improvement to the standard of living. My success metric on federal intervention in crimes in cities is a simple one, and that is, what do the citizens think, the regular citizens, what do the regular people of the city think after it's over? And I saw no less than 10 videos from Black Americans in Washington who say that this is the first time in their lives that they ever felt safe. It's the first time in their lives they ever stopped at an intersection for a red light at 2 a.m. without having to look around to see if they were going to get carjacked. And so that's my metric. It's not a political issue for me. It's a moral issue. If this improves the lives of Americans who are living in the cities, then it has to be done. And we look at these crime sprees and the number of people murdered and all the shootings and all the rest of it. What we don't see are all of the innocent people in the inner cities who go to work every day and come home every night and have to worry about whether their kids are going to get shot on the way to school. Now, obviously, there's a lot of civic virtue that has been beaten out of the Black communities in inner cities, beaten out of them by Democratic politicians. But with that said, the vast majority of people in this country, in inner cities anywhere, the vast majority of them are innocent people who are the ones who are the victims of these criminals. And so my feeling on this is, if it's Portland and Chicago, you see these Portland protesters who have completely destroyed Portland. You cannot get an ambulance if you have a heart attack. You can't do anything. They're spoiled children. And so my question on success or this or the justification of it is, what does the majority of the citizenry feel? I think the majority of the citizenry is not out in the streets. In fact, I know they're not out in the streets, because if the entire city was against it, then it would be clear. They are prisoners of it. They know they can't do anything against the mob, especially when the state is on the side of the mob. And that's what we've been dealing with since Barack Obama became president. That was the big fundamental change to America. We're going to make the criminals the good guys. We're going to make the law-abiding citizens the bad guys until the society disintegrates. That's the Marxist Frankfurt School for the destruction of the United States. Pretty simple, really, just pretty simple. We're going to eliminate law, and law enforcement will be turned against the lawful, not against the lawless. And we'll just do that until the law-abiding citizens either give up and crawl into a hole, or until they rebel in such a way that we can bring the full force of the left-controlled state down on them. And there you go. But they did not succeed. They tried. They gave it their best shot. K-Dal text with a super chat says, if Israel had the Palestinian leaders' phones tapped and rigged to explode, how could they not known about October 7th? Now, I have to tell you, K-Dal, that is an excellent question. That is something that I am legitimately curious about. How Israel, which has such excellent intelligence, how could they have not seen October 7th? But you know what I think the answer is? I think the answer is the same way that we didn't see September 11th or December 7th. It's not that we didn't know that the threat was out there. This is the nature of humanity. It's not that we didn't know the threat was out there. It's just that we didn't know exactly where it was or when it was coming. And you would think that, oh well, we should have been predicting it. No, the there is something in human nature that says if it didn't happen today and it didn't happen yesterday, then it's probably not going to happen tomorrow. The Titanic steamed into that ice field at not quite, but pretty nearly full power. Hey, North Platte, Dave Big Booty is on the Big Booty is on the road. So the Titanic steamed at nearly flank speed into the ice field in order to set the speed record for the transatlantic crossing of this incredibly expensive ship that Kennard wanted to make the envy of the world. And it was the envy of the world right up until April 12th at right around 2 o'clock in the morning. And hubris, yes. And you can say, oh, that can't be real, but think about it. There's no other explanation for it, but it's not an isolated case. Challenger exploded because there was a burn through of the O-rings on the solid rocket boosters, and there had been burn throughs on those O-rings at least 3 or 4 times prior to Challenger, and the shuttle hadn't exploded. So they thought, well, this is a problem. We got to keep an eye on it. But it didn't explode last time, and it didn't explode the time before that. Didn't explode the time before it. Probably won't explode tomorrow. Well, they were wrong. Columbia was destroyed because foam detached from the external tank. One of the reasons the foam detached was because it wasn't nearly as effective in terms of being able to glue onto the tank, because it was made from environmentally friendly foam, which was a lot weaker in terms of its adhesive abilities. But prior to Columbia, foam was being shed from the tanks, and we knew it, it was hitting the orbiter and knocking a couple tiles off, and it didn't destroy the orbiter before, and it didn't destroy it before, and it didn't destroy it before, so it probably won't destroy it today, but it does. And this is the fatal flaw of humans. We know that bad things happen, but we don't want to deal with it. Our electrical system, as an example, Frank Gaffney was all over this. Our electrical grid is so vulnerable, and if that grid goes down, it is game over for this country. It is a reset. We don't have an EMP pulse would destroy all of these power, not the power generating stations so much as the transformer stations, and the parts are unique to the station. It's not like you go to the shelf and buy another 15 of these things. Each one of these things has like uniquely built components for that particular station. It would be lights out for 2-3 years before that would. Now, with that said, I think America's get an awful lot done in 2 or 3 years, but it'd be lights out for months. And we know it's vulnerable. We know it. We know that we've borrowed $40 trillion. And we know that can't continue, but it didn't happen yesterday. It didn't happen today. Probably won't happen tomorrow. But if the thing collapses, we will know that we knew and we didn't do anything about it. So this is a much better explanation for why Israel didn't catch October 7th. Because I don't even know if it's overconfidence so much as it's just a natural human reluctance to face a natural human affinity for the narcotic of it didn't happen today. Right? Didn't happen today, probably not going to happen tomorrow. Okay, we'll worry about it tomorrow. And we'll worry about it tomorrow, and tomorrow, and tomorrow, and tomorrow, until finally it actually happens, and then, you go. So we knew, so everybody, not everybody, a lot of people say, oh, Franklin Roosevelt knew exactly when Japan was attacking, but he let the Japanese attack Pearl Harbor because we wanted to go to war for this reason or that reason or whatever. Well, the 3,000 men that were lost on Pearl Harbor were damn shocked. And all of the people in Hawaii, on Oahu, were shocked. And when they saw the Japanese planes coming in low, and I mean low, like 20 feet above the ground, when the civilians saw these Japanese planes coming in heading for Pearl Harbor, they waved at them. They said, it's obviously an exercise, because you can't process it. it's so far outside. This is why sneak attacks are so devastating. I've said this so many times before, but I really mean it. I tuned into 9/11. I live in California. I'm on the West Coast. I got a call saying turn on the TV. What channel? Any channel. And I turned on the TV, and I came into 9/11 live just a few moments after the first tower had gone down. So the first thing I see on my screen is one of the two trade centers and a huge plume of smoke, and it's images being taken from a circling helicopter. And my thought was, isn't that something? I was sure there were twin towers. Obviously, I'm wrong. I remember thinking, no, there's only one. There's only one World Trade Center tower. It's obviously a mistake in my memory. There's no way it could have been two towers because skyscrapers don't just disappear like that. I obviously was mistaken in my memory. Couldn't process it. Just couldn't. And a lot of those people on the first several minutes here at Pearl Harbor, the guys on the guns were just standing there looking. They're getting bombs dropped on their heads. It's some kind of mistake. It's some kind of drill. They couldn't process it until they had 10 minutes to wake up from the shock. It's how we're built. Busted Half Nickel Swamp says, hey, Bill, why do we have the ADL here in We the People's Country, USA, when we already have laws on the books for defamation, libel, and slandering? I'm not a big fan of the ADL, but citizens are allowed to form whatever organizations they want to. I think we have the ADL for the same reason we have the NRA. It's not for me to say what people think are important or want to organize for. Now, if you start getting into illegal activities or something like that, it's a whole other story. Southern Poverty Law Center, which apparently started out with some kind of a... Actually, I think Southern Poverty Law Center was evil from its inception. Why do we have the NAACP? Why do we have the AARP? Why do we have any of those organizations? Because people have an interest in... People will get together and form groups in order to protect things that they think are important. That's fine. Why do we have a Muslim Brotherhood? You know, it's not a question of the organization. If it turns out that the organization is either breaking the law, doing something like that, that's a different story. And by the way, when I hear these people saying Israel controls America, I just think they're flat out wrong. But really, if you think about it, if what they're saying is that Israel is able to buy politicians in order to move American policy in their direction, whose fault is that? Everybody is trying to influence the government to move in their direction. Like I said, the NRA does that, and the National Organization of Women does that. If it turns out that politicians are being bought, then it's the politicians' fault, and it's the people's fault for electing politicians like that. That's how it works. Cato Tex with the super chat says, would you ever consider listening to arguments opposed to Israel and Jewish influence? As a former hardcore neocon testing his beliefs, it's valuable to hear rational arguments against your own. I'm perfectly happy to hear rational arguments against it. Look, there's a lot about Israel to criticize. There's a lot about Israel to criticize. There's a lot about it and there's a lot about American Jews that generates a sense of resentment. I completely understand it. This is the essence of what I'm really trying to say. There is built into us a everybody except for liberals, they actually are wired backwards for this, but for most creatures, reptiles, mammals, all of us, we see the other. I'm not talking about a different species. I'm saying there's a group of chimps, and they see another group of chimps, and there's a pride of lion, they see another pride of lions, and a pack of wolves, they see another pack of wolves. The other is wired into us, and I suppose it's in there for a good reason as far as our survival goes. But yes, when you see Hasidic Jews or Orthodox Jews walking down the street, and they're clearly intentionally setting themselves apart from the rest of the population, it can generate a sense of who do these people think they are, you know, and Israel is a Israel is an aggressive country diplomatically. I think it's because they have no choice but to be aggressive. That's my take on it. But it doesn't mean they're not aggressive, and it doesn't mean they, you know, that sometimes they do nefarious things. But the question is, you know, when you, like for example, you hear, well, it turns out that Israel was spying on the U.S. Okay, does that make me happy? No. It does it. Do I find it offensive? Yes. But I also know that we're spying on Israel, and I know that the Soviets or the Russians are spying on Israel. They're spying on us. We're spying on the Russians. Everybody's spying on everybody, and that's just self-preservation. That's the nature of how the world works. So, I am perfectly happy to criticize Israel for things that Israel actually did or does. But see, it's the real world is nuanced. I don't have nuanced morality. I believe in absolute truth, and I believe in absolute right and wrong and good and evil. But the application in the real world here on planet Earth is a very nuanced and complicated thing. For example, and I'm saying this hypothetically, for example, there have been allegations that Israel intentionally lowered its guard on October 7th. If it turns out that that's true, that they knew they were going to be attacked, and they lowered their guard in order to allow that attack to happen, that would be a devastating indictment of the Israeli side of this argument, because that would be Israel doing the same thing that Hamas is doing. In other words, sacrificing innocent civilians for a higher political goal. And by the way, that's precisely the argument that people make against FDR. I think FDR is one of there are the four horsemen of the apocalypse as far as America is concerned, and FDR is one of those four horsemen. But to say that FDR knew exactly where the Japanese fleet was and where they were coming and how they could have, you know, deployed the fleet and stuff, that's basically saying that we are not any different than Hamas or Nazis or the KGB. You know, so. It's the argument many are making. Israel is doing exactly what Hamas is doing, and that's why they don't support Israel, even though Hamas is evil. Yeah, well, Israel didn't launch an attack on Hamas on October 7th, did they, Marusha? Israel didn't go over the fence and just start gunning down people and smashing babies against the wall, did they? See, that's the problem. This is where the theory falls apart. And it's the same thing with Ukraine and Russia. You can make all the arguments about NATO encroaching on Russia, and these are legitimate arguments, and they have a lot of merit. But ultimately, somebody went across a line in one direction, and that's it. History didn't start on October 7th. No, it didn't, Marusha. It didn't start on October 7th. It didn't start on 1948. It didn't start in 700 AD. It didn't start anywhere. But the one thing that you can say without any rational disagreement is, if Israel wanted to absolutely bulldoze the Palestinians into the ocean and be done with it, they could have, and they could have done it on the West Bank too. They had the Sinai Peninsula, which alone, what did that do to Israel's territory? Once they had, by the way, they won the Sinai territory in a battle where they were attacked. They won it defensively. That was a pick six, and they gave it back. So I'm not. There are no perfect people or perfect countries down here, but there are pretty much people who are on one side of the morality issue and people on the other. Blessed Half Nickel Swamp said, why did Israel Prime Minister come to the USA to tell we the people, true American patriots, that we're not MAGA if we don't support Ben Shapiro's favorite country? I suspect, well, first of all, that's assuming that that's played out exactly the way you said it, but for the sake of the argument, let's say that. Why did Israel Prime Minister come to the USA to tell we the people, true American patriots, that we're not MAGA if they don't support Ben Shapiro's favorite country? And the answer, Nickel, is because it's in Israel's interest to do that. I don't expect Benjamin Netanyahu to function in the best interest of the United States. I expect him to function in the best interest of Israel because he's the Prime Minister of Israel. I don't expect Donald Trump to negotiate in the interest of the Chinese or the Israelis, for that matter. I expect him to negotiate or to use his influence in order to promote American interests. So I don't have any problem with him coming and trying to influence American public opinion. I know that everybody tries to influence American public opinion. Everybody does it. I just think that some of the people who are trying to influence American public opinion are hang on, I got somebody got an auto comment there. I don't well, I'll just I got to move on to the next question because it's getting a little late. What I'll say is this: what Israel wants from the United States is not antithetical to the United States and will not cause the destruction of the United States. Okay? If they want money and military support, we can argue and have perfectly legitimate arguments about whether we should be doing that or not, and if so, to how much. Whether we should be spending money on Israel, that's a perfectly legitimate, 100% legitimate concern and is open to debate. But I will say this: what Israel wants from America is not the destruction of America. What Islam wants from America is, and what the left wants from America is, it's the destruction of America. So I don't take them as I don't treat them with the same degree of hostility that I treat some of those other players. So let me get back to where we were here. Come on. I gotta get. How many do we have left? We got Steve. Oh, only one to go. That's great. Fantastic. Steve Young, evening, Bill. Lawfare. Please speak about the difference between any administration directing its Justice Department to investigate and, if legal, prosecute alleged criminal activity of those that may have a different political ideology and weaponizing justice and intelligence organizations against one's political opponents. I think that that's actually pretty simple. We do have laws in this country, and we have constitutional laws, we have local laws, we have laws against murder, rape, and arson. We also have laws against embezzlement. We have laws against fraud. We have laws against insider trading. We have all of those things. When Biden launched his raid on Mar-a-Lago, there was no evidence for Trump having committed any crimes, and the entire Biden administration's reason for going after Donald Trump was because of Russian collusion, which was not true, which was invented by Barack Obama personally. So that was an unjustified use of government resources against a person and a movement that haven't broken the law. The Make America Great Again movement doesn't break any laws. When there's a MAGA rally in a park, we don't burn down buildings, and we don't trash the place. We don't smash windows, and we don't beat up people. So if you're going to go after MAGA with the government, you're going after somebody who hasn't broken any laws. Now, on the other hand, if you're going after Antifa, you could say, well, that's just political, but it's not. We're going against Antifa not because they're leftists or they disagree with us. We're going against Antifa because they're freaking criminals. And the same thing is true for all of these these things. So when I talk about weaponizing the government, I'm talking about using the coercive power of the state illegitimately because there is no laws broken. And this, to me, is the difference between going after the left and the left going after the right. Donald Trump was not guilty of collusion with Russia. Barack Obama knew that. He was told that by his intelligence teams. He ordered them to come up with a new story and to sell it, which they did. And that is the weaponization of the government against the people. And the people who did that now need to pay for it. If it turned out that it was the other way around, I can assure you I would want the same justice to be brought. I don't, when we get down to things like truth and lies, good and evil, right and wrong, I shed party identity real fast when we get on that level. I don't have any sympathy for conservative criminals or lawbreakers. On the contrary, I want them to face the full might of justice, or maybe even more than I want it to hit the left, because I expect better of them. This is why I think that policemen who abuse their power are the lowest of the low. They do more damage to the system than just about anything you can imagine. But weaponization or going after people, I think the point I'm trying to make is pretty clear that that the Biden administration illegally used the power of the FBI and the Justice Department. This goes back to Obama. Truth over tribe. Yes, Coffee Shinato. That's actually should be my motto. Put that. You could just get a laser tattoo and just tattoo it on my forehead. Yeah, truth over tribe. I'm 100% truth over tribe guy. 100%. I've always been that way, and I always will be. Yeah, I've never heard the term before. It's great. I don't know if you came up with it, but it needs to be on a bumper sticker. Truth over tribe. That's me. 100%. 100%. So, it's easy. The nice thing about truth over tribe is you don't, I miss Norm Macdonald so much. The nice thing about truth over tribe is you don't have to be a hypocrite. Not that there aren't worse things in life than being a hypocrite. If you haven't heard Norm talking about this, he was just so many times he was saying he heard about Cosby, and I think it was Patton Oswalt, who's an awful person. And isn't he in Star Trek now or something? He was on Mystery Science Theater 3000 reboot, which got seen by 4 people, which was another catastrophe. I'm not a Patton Oswalt fan, but I think Norm said Patton Oswalt was the one who said that the worst thing about the Cosby thing is the hypocrisy of it. And Norm, being Norm, said, "See, for me, the worst thing about it wasn't the hypocrisy. The worst thing about it was the rape." I would put hypocrisy down on about the 6th level there. I thought, I miss him so much. But yeah, he's right. But my point is that if you're truth over tribe, you don't have to be you don't get into hypocrisy situations. I say this rarely because it just sounds so. Well, to use the Simpsons, Mr. Burns' term, I think it was. It's like, I don't like wallowing in my own crapulence. But I'll tell you honestly, I really mean this. I am incorruptible. Most of the people in this space, in conservative commentary, are multimillionaires. I'm happy if I'm a multi-thousandaire, and I cannot be bought. I cannot and will not say something that I know is false, and I won't speak against something that I believe in. And there's no amount of money you can pay me to do that. And I'm telling you sincerely, that's the truth. Because how do you face yourself? I don't know. Yeah, Chaos Forever. I did see the Aztec Batman. It's just another sign of how lost these people are. It's not even our culture. It's just these people. They're just so bloody lost. So there you go. Busted Ave Nickel Swamp says, when's the last time Bill Whittle had In-N-Out? I don't know. It's been about a month or two now. Um, yeah, thank you very much, Marusha. That's very kind. That's what we love about you, Bill. What does it profit a man to gain the world but lose his soul? Yeah, it's not worth it, man. And that road never ends. Once you make that decision, that's it. There are incorruptible people, and I think, and this is why I'm so proud to be an American conservative. I really think that virtually everybody in the MAGA movement, I mean regular people, right? Virtually everybody in the MAGA movement are incorruptible patriots. That there's nothing you could do, no amount of money that you could pay them, that you could pay an American patriot to sell out his country. And despite all this anti-Israel stuff going on out there, it does need to be said that a lot of people who are like vehemently espousing this are doing it because they love America and they think it's in the best interest of America to make this argument. I just think they're wrong, but I don't question many of their motives. Some of them, their motives, I absolutely question. There's no question in my mind that some of these people out there are doing it for the money, and other ones are doing it just because they hate either Jews or whatever the case may be, as a group, as a collective. So, I don't know. But I know for a certain fact that some of them are doing it just for the money, and I don't know. Eric says, Bill saying things like I'm incorruptible makes you an easier target for the devil through pride. It's not pride, Eric. That's why I prefaced this by saying that virtually everybody in this space is a multimillionaire and I'm a multi-thousandaire. It doesn't come from a place of pride. It comes from a place of humility, and it comes from a place of having had that theory tested many times in the real world. I didn't go swing that around like a banner. It's just when the subject comes up, it's important to know. That's just it. I've often thought about this, and I've especially thought about because the trap is not that, if I had this money, think of all the evil things I could do. The trap is, if I had this money, think of all the good things I could do. If I went back on my principles for something and I got $1 million or $10 million or whatever, think about all the good things I could do for conservatism if I did that. And that is a compelling argument, man. But it just, in the end, you either tell the truth or you don't. And that's it. That's it. So, all right, I think we're at the end of the road for tonight. In fact, we are. Hey, good to see you, bro. Okay, so yeah, I'm not gonna. There's something going on, but I'm not gonna get into it. I need to get going. I'm gonna be back here early tomorrow. Got a show to put up. We're gonna be doing Steve Green's show tonight. Steve is talking about Amazon, who ruins everything they touch. Has bought the Bond movies, and they have taken the guns out of the posters of James Bond. Oh, here, I'll tell you what. You lucky people, you get to see. You get to see tomorrow's thumbnail today. Did it just before we rolled here. Hang on a second. Hold on. Here you go. Hey, it worked that time. I just dragged it in there. So I got to get this thing edited and posted, and so now it's time to say goodbye to all our company. But we will see you guys on Monday night, and And until then, take care of yourselves. And remember, we're one big happy family. We're one big happy fleet. And don't forget it. So